Hi guys, it's Steph here from the Novelty Corner. Welcome back to my channel, and I finally got a weekly wrap up after I missed last week because of VidCon and school concert and all those fun things. But I'm back and I'm going to share with you the things that I read in the last 2 weeks. Before I do that, I want to talk super quickly about a bookish event that I went to 2 weeks ago, which was the God's Grave launch at Mix in the city. It was so much fun. It was so packed and it was just really, really fun. And for me, the highlight was getting to meet some of my favorite people here on BookTube. So I did get a chance to finally meet Pierre from Pierre Ford in person, as well as Kaz from Little Book Owl, and they're super sweet and lovely, and it was just really nice to be able to say hi in person. It was also great to see all of my friends who I've made through the YA Room book club, as a lot of them were there, and it was just really nice to say hi and just celebrate books and one of our favorite authors together. There was also an absolutely incredible cake, which I will leave a link to on the screen, as well as a link to the cake creators social media platform so that you can check her out. It was absolutely mind-blowing, this cake. It was just, I don't know how people do it. I take my hat off to you. There was an opportunity to get books signed, so I got both my copy of Nevernight and God's Grave signed. 1, 2. And I have started reading God's Grave, but I am only about 50 pages into it, so I won't be talking about it in this particular wrap up, but it was a really, really fantastic night and I'm so glad that I went. Now on to the reading wrap up. So this is my wrap up for the weeks of September the 3rd until September 16th. I read 6 books in the last 2 weeks, which is not bad considering I was dead tired for the majority of it. I read a total of 2,029 pages and my reading total is up to 190 books for the year. God's Grave is 191. I'm hoping to finish it this weekend. The first book that I finished this week was a semi-definitive list of worst nightmares by Crystal Sutherland, which I talked about in my last wrap-up video very briefly because that's when I'd been to this particular book event as well. This is the story of Esther Stoller and her family who have been cursed by death, and they are cursed to suffer one great fear in their lifetime, and that fear is likely to kill them. So far, Esther has managed to escape the curse by constantly writing down her list of worst nightmares. So it's not her greatest fear, but they are things that she is very scared of. And one day she is reunited with Jonah, who is a former classmate and former crush of hers, and together they begin to work through her list of worst nightmares. This was super cute, and this book won't be for everyone because I think there are some very triggering things in here for some people, but I really enjoyed it and I liked Esther, and I liked that the realizations that she had to come to in this book about herself and about her fears. And even though Jonah pushes her a lot of the time to do some of these things, I don't think it's in a really bad way. I don't think he ever would have forced her to do anything that she wasn't willing to try to do herself, if that makes sense. This was published this year and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I just thought it was a fun read about facing your fears. And as someone who is terrified of pretty much most things in life, I can relate. Next, I read Wonder Woman Warbringer by Leigh Bardugo. This is obviously the first book in the new DC Icons series that are coming out. It is an origin story of Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman, and it is different to the movie. So beware of that going into it. It's very different to the movie. Now, being someone who is not completely aware of all of the Wonder Woman mythology, because she's never particularly been one of my favorites until the movie, in which case she became one of my favorite of the movie canon DC characters. I don't know how true this is to original source material, so I'm not even going to comment on that. What I am going to say though is that I liked this book. I liked it, but I was also disappointed by it. I don't think it was as strong as it could have been. I don't know. It's a young adult book and it felt like it was a young adult book. And you've heard me say that about a few books, and quite often they're American ones. And I don't know. I think this could have been a little bit smarter in what it did. There are some really fantastic things in here, like female empowerment and girls being super strong. All the female characters are really great, but Diana felt off for me. And I know she's experiencing the world for the first time, but even still, it felt really strange. While I enjoyed it, I think it could have been done better. And I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion, but I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. And honestly, I don't know whether it's Leigh Bardugo's particular writing style, because I've had this problem with all of her books. I don't think I've talked about it with all of her books, but the more I read of her books, the more it becomes apparent to me that this is my problem with her books. Next, I read Good Friday by Linda LaPlante. This was sent to me for review by Allen and Unwin, and it was an unsolicited review. It is the third book in the Jane Tennyson series, and I believe this is the series that Prime Suspect is based on. It is the same character as Prime Suspect, but I've never seen it. So it is a British crime book, and I enjoyed it, but it was definitely not my favourite in this genre, or at least in the crime genre, because I don't tend to read a lot of British crime, and I think there's a reason for it. This was quite slow. It is set in 1976 amid a spate of IRA bombings, and Jane Tennyson has been promoted to detective, and she is caught up in one of the bombings, which leaves her shaken. And she is one of the few people who may have potentially seen this bomber. The police begin to work to uncover the identities of the detectives, and obviously Jane gets wrapped up in this. I don't know, Jane felt extremely young in this, and I get that it's the 70s and that female police detectives were not common or really respected at all, but there's a lot of misogyny in this book and sexist comments, and quite frankly that irritated me a little bit. I understand it in context, but still a bit odd. Overall, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Not the best crime novel I've read, but one that I enjoyed but just found very slow to read. The rest of the books that I read are all ebooks. So the first one that I read was They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This is the YA Room's book of the month, and to be honest, I wouldn't have read this book if it wasn't the book of the month for my book club, because I actually had really no interest in reading it. It is the story of a world where the day that you are going to die, you receive a phone call informing you of your impending death. And 2 boys receive this call. These 2 boys connect on the Last Friend app, which is an app that's designed to allow people to find someone to spend their last day with in a way that's meaningful and friendly, and not necessarily a creepy way, but could potentially be creepy. Just putting it out there. Obviously things happen, and I know that this book is designed to hit you in the feels, but it really didn't for me, because you've got a premise where you're telling the reader from the start that you're going to kill off your 2 characters. Yes, there's a lot of build up to it, but ultimately, how can I connect to characters when I know you're going to kill them from the start? It's different if I'm happy for people to kill off characters, don't get me wrong. I love when characters get killed off in real and meaningful ways, and ways that impact on the story. But when you know from the start that they're going to die, then it's sort of, well, why would I get invested in their story? Particularly as an older reader reading YA, that sort of concept is a bit strange. And as I said, I had no intention of reading it initially. So it is a good book, and I can see why people would like it. And I did like the characters. Adam Silvera writes really wonderful characters, but I couldn't get invested in them because, you know, the whole time you're sitting there going, okay, well, is he going to kill them off, and when's it going to happen, and how's it going to happen? Ultimately, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Please don't hate me, Adam Silvera fans, because it's not a reflection on his writing. It's just the topic, really. Then I read No Vain Loss by MC Frank. This is a future release. It is being released at the end of November, and I received a copy of it for review. It is the 3rd book in the No Ordinary Star series, and it concludes that particular thread of the story. I obviously can't say too much about it because it is the 3rd book in a series, but it does pick up right where it left off, with Felix and Astra having to deal with the consequences of the 2nd book. It was action-packed for the first 80 pages, like non-stop, something going on. Every single paragraph, something happened and changed, and I love that. I love just being thrown straight into action. And then we sort of unravel a few more mysteries, and there was a really nice sort of open ending at the end of it, and I absolutely adored it. This is just a series that I may not necessarily have ever picked up had I not made a connection with the author via their street team, and I'm so glad that I did, because it's a series that I really enjoy, and it's short and it's easy to read, and it's just this unique concept, and I absolutely adored it. So that gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I read this week was Wheels Up by Ambient. This is the fourth book in the Out of Uniform series, and it is a male romance book with 2 Navy SEAL characters, and this one was probably not my favourite of the series so far, to be honest. It follows Dustin, who is a character that we have met through previous books, particularly the 3rd book, which involved his younger brother Dylan, and he is trying to find his identity as a bisexual man in the Navy, and he's been chatting to this guy online, Wes, and he really likes him. And one day they meet up in DC and they, have a one night thing. And then not too long afterwards, all of a sudden, Wes turns up and he has been assigned to Dustin's SEAL team, and that causes a whole mass of issues because there are serious fraternization rules in the Navy, and Dustin is an officer and Wes is an enlisted man, and so there's this real conflict. The reason why it's probably not my favourite of the series, because I did enjoy it. I like the characters and I like the way that Annabeth Elbert writes these books, but there was this whole we can't get together, and then 5 pages later they're hooking up constantly throughout the book, and I get it, I do, but it was that constant push and pull, and it's not going to end well. This book does have its own happily ever after at the end. Obviously it's a romance book, but yeah, I didn't find it as engaging as probably the other books in the series. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I still liked it, I really do, and I'm going to continue with the series. And I did receive it from NetGalley in exchange for a fair and honest review, so there it is. I think there are some things that set it apart from the other books in the series, but what can you do? So those are the physical books I read, plus 3 ebooks. Yay! Let me know in the comments what you have been reading, anything interesting, anything stand out to you, let me know down below. I'm always on the lookout for recommendations, because I just apparently like having an ongoing TBR that's a full bookshelf, essentially. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you are having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.